Recently here on my channel, I conducted a poll. Over 5,000 people condemned Muhammad's relationship with Aisha. About 100 people said that they wanted to condemn Muhammad, but were unable to because they're Muslims. It seems that Muhammad's logic, Aisha's 9, and that's fine, isn't acceptable in the modern world. When Muslims try to defend Muhammad having sex with a 9-year-old girl, they come up with all kinds of excuses. Here's one of my favorites. Aisha became a scholar and narrated many hadith. And that's true. In fact, her narrations are some of my favorites. Aisha says several times that she scratched semen off of the clothes of Muhammad with her fingernails. It must have been one of her most vivid childhood memories. Aisha also tells us that women were treated the worst by Muslim men when an abused woman was brought to Muhammad. Muhammad, ever the champion for women's rights, did nothing to protect her. Aisha also tells us that Muhammad compared women to dogs and donkeys. She also says how he struck her on the chest and caused her pain. Aisha also reports how Muhammad commanded a woman to breastfeed a man. When Muhammad was told the man was an adult, Muhammad smiled like only a creepy pervert could and said, "I know that he is a grown man." Aisha says she was taken from a swing set with her dolls to go consummate the marriage. Aisha, agreeing with the Quran, also comments that Muhammad did not know the future or the unseen, contrary to all of the prophecies of Muhammad nonsense that we see today. According to Aisha, Muhammad also denied torture in the grave when he heard it from a Jewish woman, and then decided later that the woman was right, and became fearful that he would be tortured in the grave himself. And finally, Aisha tells us that the way Muhammad died sounds strikingly similar to the way Allah said he would punish a false prophet. So yes, Aisha did narrate many hadith, but of course this has absolutely nothing to do with Muhammad sleeping with her when she was 9 years old. But now let's hear Yasser Qadhi's defense.
I find it amusing that people who wish to defend women's rights make this such a big issue when Aisha herself didn't make it a big issue. She didn't seem to mind. In fact, she was very proud of it till the day she died.
Aisha herself didn't make it a big issue. Let's just take that statement at face value and assume Qadhi's point. If we simply take the Muslim sources for what they do and do not say, there's actually a perfectly good explanation for Aisha's silence on the issue and her loyalty to Muhammad. This explanation is in what's popularly known as Stockholm Syndrome, which can be defined as follows. Stockholm Syndrome is a term used to describe the positive bond some kidnap victims develop with their captor. Social scientists debate whether Stockholm Syndrome is a standalone psychiatric condition or not. That debate doesn't concern us in this video. What does concern us is the behavior that victims display. Let's look at an article in the Journal of Child Sexual Abuse, starting with the abstract. This article, based on an analysis of unstructured interviews, identifies that the emotional bond between survivors of child sexual abuse and the people who perpetrated the abuse against them is similar to that of the powerful bidirectional relationship central to Stockholm Syndrome, as described in 1994. Aspects of Stockholm Syndrome could be identified in the responses of adult survivors of child sexual abuse, which appear to impact on their ability to criminally report offenders. An emotional bond which has enabled the sexual abuse of children has served to protect the offender long after the abuse has ceased. A victim's positive response to his or her offender results from the belief that a positive relationship with the offender is the only way to survive. Dr. Shirley Julich states that survivors who have been subjected to ongoing contact with sexually abusive members within their family or social networks seem to be emotionally bonded to the offender, and this appeared to contribute significantly to their reluctance to criminally report. Articles like these offer a disturbing view into the twisted world of child sex offenders. This is not pleasant reading. "My uncle repeatedly told me," said Anna, "that what we were doing was wrong. It was wrong in the eyes of the law and in the eyes of God. He said that on Judgment Day, God would forgive us both, but if anyone found out what was happening, he would go to jail. I would go to an orphanage and my father would lose his job. My mother, brother, aunt, and cousins would have no one who could go to work and earn the money. They would lose their homes and have no food or clothes. It became my responsibility to make sure this didn't happen." Dr. Julich comments further, "As adults, a number of survivors believed that an offender could abuse a child without other adults or bystanders being aware. For a child, this could be interpreted as proof of their inability to escape. Anna stated, "I was never sure if my aunt knew or not. On the one hand, I believe she must have known. Did she never wonder why it took him, that is, her uncle, so long to say goodnight? On the other hand, I know that these people, the offenders, are so plausible. They hide it so well. We underestimate how clever they are." Anna was around 8 years old when she was being abused by her uncle, who took an extra long time to tell her goodnight, and she's one of the few who stepped forward to tell her story. Does that mean that what her uncle did to her was okay before she spoke out about it, when she was being molested in her bed, and then left to reflect on what happened to her for the rest of the night and the rest of her life? In the bigger picture, estimates say that less than 10% of girls who are sexually assaulted under the age of 18 report sexual abuse. Does that mean that 90% of what violators do to girls under 18 is okay, because only 10% of them report it, and the rest, to use Yasser Qadhi's phrase, don't make it a big deal? The story of Anna is just one example, giving us a brief look into the twisted minds of perverted people like her uncle. This is necessary to prevent Muslims from distancing themselves from the horror of what the hadith explicitly say Muhammad did: had sex with a 9-year-old girl. So just keep switching your brains off, Muslims, and saying whatever nonsense you want to try to defend your prophet. It doesn't matter how dumb it is, how immoral, how self-contradictory, how much it flies in the face of what we know about sex abuse and psychology. Just throw something out there. Any explanation will do. The honor of your prophet is on the line, and when the stakes are that high, the cognitive dissonance of the Muslim world is on full display for everyone to see. Further, Muslims spend so much time denying what Muhammad did, or simply saying his marriage was a product of its time and nothing unusual, that they ignore the fact that prepubescent sex with young girls is permitted in the Quran, as Muhammad taught us.
Premise 1. If there's an iddah, then the husband has had sex with his wife. Premise 2. There's an iddah. What conclusion can we draw? Come on, Muslims, you can get this. This is the most basic argument form there is. It's called modus ponens. If A, then B. A, therefore B. If there's an iddah, then the husband has had sex with his wife. There's an iddah. Conclusion, therefore, the husband has had sex with his wife.
And this waiting period is for prepubescent girls as well in Surah 65:4, assuming then that the marriage has been consummated. That the waiting period applies to prepubescent girls is affirmed by numerous tafsirs and Muslim authorities, like Ibn Kathir, Tafsir al-Jalalain, Tabari, Razi, etc. So, some questions for Muslims. Do you condemn what Anna's uncle did to her? How is Anna's story different from what Muhammad did to Aisha? If what Muhammad did was acceptable in his day, but not in ours, in what sense can he be said to be a good example for modern Muslims to follow? What's the point of making excuses for your prophet's sex with Aisha when the Quran itself allows prepubescent sex with young girls? If Allah didn't intend to allow prepubescent sex with young girls, why is the clear Arabic Quran so unclear that many Muslim scholars have taken Surah 65:4 to include prepubescent girls? I'll be waiting for your answers in the comments section.